Hello everyone, it's Menenberg, and we are in for a treat today. I am using my doc cam, not my doc cam, my webcam, and it's going to be great because the audio is obviously going to be superior and the video quality is also going to be very high. In any case, we're going to do some stimulus-based SAQ stuff today again because we just had a unit test and it's important that you all figure out how to answer a stimulus-based short answer question. Now, this is applicable if you're taking the AP European History test, the AP US History test, or the AP Modern World test. You got to figure out how to tackle these questions because guaranteed you're going to have at least 2 stimulus-based SAQs on the AP exam. That's a lot, so you better figure it out. Remember, there's only 3 that you got to answer, so 2 of them are stimulus-based. Let's do this. So I have prepared another beautiful, beautiful PowerPoint. Why wouldn't I? Let's take a look, people. Okay, so again, just a reminder, the SAQ is 20% of your AP exam score, and you need to do really well on these. And if you do really well, you're probably going to also do really well on the LEQ and the DBQ. So this is helpful. This is the stimulus edition of How to SAQ. Now, I've already made videos about this, so it's just reiterating your need to understand prompts and what is being asked of you on a given video. Or excuse me, a given prompt, I should say. So first, some timely reminders, okay? First, you don't want to ever quote the stimulus. This is a particularly challenging thing for those of you who have an English proclivity. Your English classes love, and I'm an English teacher, love to use quotes, and this is simply not something you're ever going to want to do. I've said this in other videos, but I still see people quoting the stimulus. And that just indicates to me that you don't have any outside evidence. It's a waste of time and space though. Don't do it ever. You're not going to impress anyone. They see the stimulus, they see the writing, they've read it, they don't need you to do it for them, okay? The next thing is, don't forget that no matter what the prompt says, you must be bringing outside evidence into your answer. Okay, so some of these prompts are pretty basic, and I'm going to show you an example of that. And a lot of times students think, oh, well, I just need a very basic answer. Okay, your answer could be simple, but it better have some specific evidence that is outside of what is given to you in the stimulus. If it doesn't, not getting the points. The outside evidence, like I just said, it better be specific. It better be specific. Think journalism, who, what, when, where, why, how, those types of questions. You don't have to tackle all of those, but you better be able to pin down your specific evidence in time and space, and it better be unique to that time period or space or people or whatever. Otherwise, it's not going to get the points, okay? So you can rest assured if you're reading your answer after you wrote it and you don't have any of that stuff, it ain't gonna happen, okay? You're not gonna be able to BS your way through this, people. Fourth, you have limited space to write. I see people write responses to one SAQ prompt that are 7 or 8 sentences long. That's too long, people. Make it 2, maybe 3, 4 sentences tops, okay? Don't repeat yourself, cut out the garbage. All right, let's get to a sample, shall we? Now, before you look at this beautiful sample, this is from an AP exam, I believe. I'm not gonna read the stimulus. I'm not gonna read it because that is just a waste of time right now. I'm not saying you should never read it. I'm just saying we're not going to read it right now. We're instead going to look at the prompts. You always want to look at the prompts first. So first prompt is to identify one claim in the passage. Now, this goes to your reading comprehension. This is what you're being asked to do. And just because it says identify does not mean you don't need to give some specific outside evidence. If you understand what this stimulus is saying, then you should also understand what a claim is. A claim is something that someone might be able to disagree with, and it is also something that there's probably going to be some evidence for. So summarizing the passage in this case is not going to cut it. That is not giving anything from outside. That is not giving anything specific. That is just demonstrating to the reader that you read the passage and can paraphrase it, not what is being asked. Okay? Part B, describe one reason why European trading companies, quote, became an inevitable part of politics and economy of South India and other regions of Asia in the period 1450 to 1750. Again, we're not going to read the stimulus, but understand that just because there's a quote in the prompt, one, you should never quote anyway. It doesn't give you permission to do it, but also it's a reason to only rely on info in the passage. This is what I see all the time. People look at a quote in the prompt and they're like, oh, well, if they're quoting the prompt, that means my answer better be from the stimulus. Okay, if they're quoting the stimulus, I better be also using only information from the stimulus. That is false. You still need to bring in outside evidence into your answer, my friends. If you don't do that, you're not going to get the points. Okay? Last prompt here. Explain one piece of evidence from the period 1450 to 1750 that would complicate the portrayal of the economic relationship between Asian and European producers and merchants provided in the second paragraph. Now, this is a great reminder that you need to read the prompts first, because I'm only really relying on that second paragraph for my understanding of what to answer in this third prompt. Now, here's the thing. Again, I got to go beyond the prompt. I got to go beyond the stimulus, rather. You better understand that terminology. What is the portrayal? Okay, so we're looking for something. We're looking for what is the portrayal in that second paragraph. What's the portrayal of the economic relationship between Asian and European producers? What is it? If I don't know what it is, I'm certainly not going to be able to provide evidence that, quote, complicates that portrayal. Now, here's what a lot of students are doing on this prompt, by the way. I did this as a test, so I've seen the results. And that is, they are using this as like, they don't know what complicates means in this case. And so what they're doing is they're like, oh, here's what's going on in the second paragraph. Let's paraphrase that, basically. Let's just say, oh yeah, in India and because of England and trade companies and blah, blah. And they just paraphrase what happened in the second paragraph. Not at all what is being asked. We are asking you, or College Board is asking you, to understand what is the portrayal. So in other words, how is the relationship being portrayed? Europe and Asia, what's it like? Who's the stakeholders? Who's winning? Who's losing? Who's profiting? Who's being harmed? And in this case, it's the Europeans that are kind of controlling the situation. The South Asians are being, you know, they're being oppressed and all this other stuff. Okay, so that's the portrayal. So what I need to do is find something that complicates things. You guys know what complicated means. It means it's not simple. It means it's not easy. It means it's something that might be just a little bit different than what we're seeing in that second paragraph. In other words, give me an example of anywhere in Asia. And by the way, that's a large continent last time I checked. Give me an example of anywhere in Asia during this time period that had a different relationship with Europe. That's it. That's it. Okay, so you can go to Japan, you can go to China. There's a lot of other choices. You can even go to other parts of India where there is a slightly different relationship. All it needs to be is slightly different, because if it's slightly different, guess what? That means it's complicated, doesn't it? All right, people, shall we move on? Let's move on. Now, if you have questions at this point, put them in the comments. Let me know. I want to make sure you're clear on this. But as I've said many times, for all different types of AP testing pieces, if you don't understand what is being asked of you, you are going to struggle mightily. This is a fantastic example, Part C, where students simply did not understand what the prompt was asking, and they struggled because of that. If you don't understand what the prompt is asking, it's going to be an uphill battle. You got to read a lot of prompts, you got to practice, and you will get the hang of this. Let's look at another one, though. Again, we're not going to read this stimulus. This is from one of the AP exams a few years back, so it's something that you can and should expect to see something like this on the actual AP exam. Part A, describe one way in which the document reflects the specific historic situation of Spain's maritime exploration and colonization in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. So this is where A, you show that you understand what the specific passage is saying, and B, you show that you have some specific content knowledge about this time period. You can't fake it. So here's the thing, like, you got to read the stimulus for this, obviously, but more than just reading it, you got to kind of understand what's going on. If I don't read it and I look at the date alone and I know that it's Spain and I know kind of a little bit about Spain in the 15th century and in the late 15th and early 16th century, I should be fine. What's going on? What's the historic situation? Specifically, you can't just be like, oh, Spain was sailing boats on the ocean. That's not good enough. You got to get specific. It's got to go beyond the passage. and it's got to be something that is taking place in that time period. You can't give me something from the 17th century or the 18th century or the 9th. It's got to be late 15th, early. So you got to have some content knowledge here. Part B, explain one political development in the 15th and early 16th century that would likely explain why the King and Queen of Spain highlighted the donation made in the first and second paragraph. Okay, so this is great because it is a perfect evidence as to why you need to know the AP themes. I have videos for this. Go watch them, people. Some people still don't believe me that those are important, but you better know. You also better know that there's more than one option here. This is a fantastic example of why you need to read the prompt before the stimulus, because again, you're only looking at that first and second paragraph. You're not looking at the third one, so that takes less time. But you also need to know why reading comprehension is key for AP testing, my friends. This is, I love teaching English with history because so often students are like, oh, you only do history. Well, look, if you read a bunch of prompts and understand what is being asked, your reading comprehension is gonna be very, very good when you go into a later English class. This is critical, people. I've seen so many people miss this just because they don't know what is going on in that first and second paragraph. Okay, they don't know. They also don't know the specific content knowledge about political developments during this time. Okay, that AP theme is absolutely apparent in your study of this unit. If you don't look at those themes or look at the historical content through the lens of those themes, you're going to struggle to kind of organize your content and know when to use what content when a prompt like this presents itself. So this prompt is not hard. There's more than one option. But I mean, Treaty of Tordesillas comes to mind really fast, 1494, where the Pope basically divides the North and South American continents between Spain and Portugal, two Catholic nations. Also, there's a little thing called the Protestant Reformation. May or may not have heard of it, kind of going on or starting to happen around this time period as well. It may have contributed to this idea that, well, when we were exploring, we might want to plant the flag for our church, the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church or the Anglican, whoever. Okay, these are minor, sarcasm, political developments that are going on during this time. Okay, you got to have some content knowledge for that, but you more than anything need to know what a political development is as a term. Okay, so that comes up a lot. Another thing, part C, explain one instance in which Spanish resorted to the type of actions threatened in the third paragraph. Again, we're not reading the passage. Let's just say they were violent. But you need to know there are plenty of examples. Whichever one you choose, you just have to be very specific. Again, people, this is not that complicated, but when students don't get specific in their answers or rely on the passage or quote the passage or don't give me anything outside of the passage, it shows that they fundamentally don't know what is being asked of them. And you got to understand that sometimes, in particular in that first sample, they're going to ask a question and you might have to do something that doesn't necessarily show up as the prompt. It says identify a claim. Well, you still better give me outside evidence that is surrounding that claim that you've identified, because you got to ace it. Remember, that is the formula. Answer the question, cite specific evidence, and then what? Expand or explain that evidence. In any case, people, I hope this has been helpful. We're going to stop right there. And if you have any questions or need anything about SAQs or otherwise, please post that in the comments and we'll hopefully press on. With anything, people, practice is critical. If you don't practice writing SAQs or at least breaking down SAQ prompts, I can assure you, you're going to struggle quite a bit on that AP exam. All right, people, that's all we have time for right now. Until next time, remember, life is about choices.